The point of the show is not to get into that. Ask me about that if you want to know more. We're using Riverside, which is amazing. But I just realized that on Riverside, it takes me a second to know when we're live. So we started at the right time this week, which is a big step up from last week. And we had some technical difficulties. I'm Mary McCarthy. This is the Workflow Automation Show. My co-host Kyle is with me. We run Avesta GTM together. Hey, Kyle, how you doing?
Hey, how are you? Yeah, happy to be here and very excited about today's discussion with Paul. So I guess we can start right away. Paul, we're going to let you introduce yourself.
Yeah. And before you introduce yourself, Paul, just for anyone who didn't watch the first show, the whole sort of thing that Kyle and I are trying to get into with this show is sort of going beyond the hype of everyone's talking, obviously, about AI with good reason. And then we'll say over the past 6 to 12 months, more and more so about agentic AI and maybe agentic AI automations. And the reality of what we know from the workspace, from what we do, GTM, but also from other industries, is that the real transformation that's happening is maybe like a change in how things are automated, sometimes with AI, sometimes without. And we're trying to like shed light on that. Which is why you are the perfect guest. You're a software engineer and an architect and now the founder of your own company, and you know an awful lot about this. So with that brief intro, dive in and tell us, first of all, tell us about the company, what it's called and what you guys do.
Yeah, so I started a company named MinneAI. I pretty much go into companies and I help them with whatever they need software-wise. So sometimes people will have ideas for utilizing AI. Sometimes they won't know where to even start, right? Some of these are just startups. And building out systems for them, really whatever they need. So if AI is the right answer, I try to push them in that direction. If it's not the right answer, I try to explain to them why I think it's not the right answer. My background is in software engineering. My entire life has been pretty much software engineering. So all the way from middle school and beyond, I used to, hack my friends' computers back in high school. Maybe I shouldn't say that. So I used to just, I guess that's just my passion is software engineering and engineering in general. I've worked at quite a few companies utilizing, we didn't call it AI back then. We used machine learning. Everything from manufacturing systems to ground vehicle and seismic simulation software to, worked at Amazon, worked at Chewy. I've helped invent or progress various technologies. So Wi-Fi is one of those technologies, as well as I don't know. There's quite a few technologies at this point that I've helped advance. So I've been kind of all over the place. I'll be teaching an artificial intelligence course this coming summer at St. Cloud State. So that's, I guess, hopefully that answers the question.
Maybe the final, least important, but still important to us, line on your resume, sort of an informal advisor to us here at Avesta GTM. And I know you've been a great mentor to Kyle over the years in his career and to other people, which is amazing. Is there a story behind why you called your company MinneAI, MinneAI? Or if it's super personal, we don't have to go there.
No. It's just Minnesota, right? Minnesota Artificial Intelligence. Yep. So that's where I'm located, is Minnesota. Yeah, and that's where most of my clientele are. I really like going into these startups and meeting with them face to face. So just kind of playing on words. Minnesota, Minneapolis, AI.
I knew you were in Minnesota, but I didn't even make that connection. Kyle, you probably did, right?
No, that's actually a very, very clever name. I really like it personally. I mean, if you're local, you'll like it. So
yeah, exactly.
It sounds nice. Yeah. I mean, even for us non-Minnesotans, it sounds nice. It just sounds like, Minnie Mouse or something. So let's start with like your approach to this work. So when you go into a company as a consultant or advisor, do you generally like have to kind of temper expectations about what they can or should be doing with AI?
Yes. Yep, absolutely. So it really depends on the company and where they're at and what they've experienced so far, right? Some of these companies, one of my clients had multiple consultants, contractors come in and try to build out their systems in a way that they promised that they would. And yes, they did build it that way, but it just didn't work, right? It didn't work for their needs. Their customers didn't want it that way. So I'll usually just go in, see where they're at, see what makes sense. Software engineering it's an art. Um, so if you've been doing it for quite some time, I think most software engineers would agree with that, right? Like it's an art. Um, so yeah, I'll go in, I'll try to either explain to them, really, I'll try and explain to them what AI even is in the first place. And a lot of times they'll at least get it, right? If they're close to the process, close to, whatever it is that their company is doing, they usually will, a light bulb will go off and they'll say, oh, this would work great in this specific section of our company. And that's exactly what you should be doing, right? It's a tool. AI is just a tool. Um, so yeah, if you have a workflow and you say, hey, this specific task takes us a really, really long time, maybe it's uh, you know, working with data or something that takes a lot of human hours that there's no real easy way to automate it. Um, some of those situations are really ripe for AI to make a big impact. Um, so yeah, as long as people kind of understand what it is, I guess one of the big things that I've seen truthfully throughout my career and even coming into some of these companies is that they have very high expectations as to what AI is. They go to shows and conferences and whatever, and they see these incredible things happening with AI, but it's a show. It's not necessarily able to be applied everywhere. And there are very good use cases to use AI. And that's the part that you're actually seeing. You're not seeing it applied everywhere. You're seeing it applied to where it should be applied. um, so yeah, I
So
would say that's
just
probably
because just because just because there's an ad with Matthew McConaughey saying you need AI doing such and such does not mean you need AI there, right?
I guess personal opinion, if Matthew McConaughey is telling me to do something with technology, I probably am going to do the opposite. But to
Right.
each
I,
their own.
I thought you were gonna say I thought you were gonna say you go for it. I was like, oh man, I thought you were better than that. Yeah. I
Yeah, I don't know Matthew McConaughey personally. Maybe he is an artificial intelligence expert. But yeah, I kind of doubt that also. No offense to Matthew McConaughey if he does see
yeah,
this.
great
Um,
actors. Yeah, exactly.
yeah, great actor. I love the guy. But yeah, when it comes to artificial intelligence, I'd maybe consider relying on someone else.
So what are some of the without obviously giving away the actual work you're doing with clients, like some of the use cases where you're like, yes, this is a perfect use of generative AI, and others where you're like, this doesn't need it, or we can
Yeah,
do some updating or automating or whatever, but it doesn't have to be AI led or AI enabled.
yeah. I think the most obvious is, I mean, lowest hanging fruit, which I think most software engineers at this point are already doing, and if you're not, you should be doing, is just using AI to code. Um, so if I'm a good software engineer, if I'm maybe a senior software engineer with a lot of experience, I'm able to code, I'm able to get done, 5, 10 times more than I used to be able to, right? I say, hey, this is the function I want, this is the method I want, and I want it to do these specific things. It generates the code for you. There might be some obvious bugs with it, so go in, fix those up, generate me the unit tests. I want these 4 unit tests to make sure that these specific things happen with this method. AI is great for that. I don't have to sit there and type, right? And in general, I think that is like the key to life, is to figure out how you can be as lazy as possible, right? And AI is great at that. So that's in my opinion the most obvious answer that companies should be doing. If you're a software engineer and you're not doing that, you should be. I don't know how you can get away with not doing that in today's age. So that's the most obvious. Areas that it just does not make sense are
Mhm.
areas where it should be deterministic software, right? So I've worked in tax in the past. I've worked in logistics where we try to figure out, hey, what is your estimated delivery date? What is your different things that are mostly deterministic. It needs to be the right answer. If you are shipping literally billions of packages and you're wrong 10% of the time on your taxation, well, that is going to be the worst possible thing for your company. So it's not a good use case for AI in those situations. If it's situations where you can accept, a little bit of being wrong. So generating art. I hate to say it, but generating art, it does a really good job of it. I wouldn't personally pay for it, but it does a good job of it. It does a good job of generating text, essays, writing, things like that. Same thing. You're not, even when you read it, you can kind of tell, right? Like someone didn't put their soul into this. You see AI generated images, it's the same thing. You can usually tell right away. It's like, yeah, this was AI generated, right? But nonetheless, it gets you 80-90% of the way there. You might have 6 fingers, you might have whatever, but it, it does a decent job there.
It's a constant internal battle between Kyle and myself. Not a battle, but like where I push back on.
It is a battle.
Gen, on the use of Gen AI, but sometimes I find my skepticism is counterproductive, because the reality is, as a marketer, you can't get away with not using that stuff nowadays, because
Yep.
it is so good. Again, if behind it you have a brain that already has some experience and stuff. Obviously, if you were, say, like a junior marketer, probably like a junior coder who'd never done this stuff, there's a risk that you never learn it. But yeah.
I guess this is a very good talk track here. We do have a couple of questions in the comments too, so I'm just going to paraphrase one of them questions and ask you, Paul, and get your take on that. So imagine we have some sort of AI model, whether it's LLM or if it's our own small model or something. I guess, how would you go about securing this piece of software or its interaction with the outside internet, right? Of course, it's running in a VPC somewhere, and the general don't put your hard-coded credentials into your code, rules apply. But like, how would you go, I guess, if I were to make you to go in and, build a system, like how would you secure it? So when it interacts with outside world, like it's going out and calling, I don't know, Perplexity, for example, to scrape a couple of, websites and whatnot, how would you go about securing the system? And like, what steps would you take? I mean, just from a high level, of course, we're not like, solving a use case here, but,
It's traditional software engineering best practices, right? You're not doing anything new by calling out to an API. That has been the case for, I don't know, at least decades at this point. So I think it's the same old stuff, same old software engineering, and that's where if you're vibe coding something, or if you don't really know how to secure software, well, you're probably not doing a great job at it. So encryption in transit, encryption at rest, and what I mean by that, HTTPS, right? Making sure things are encrypted at rest, especially if it's customer data. If you're calling out to APIs, you need to understand, what is this API doing with the information that I'm sending it? If it is an LLM, that's a public LLM that is outside of your VPC, well, they might be using that, right? And truthfully, they probably are using it in one way or another, whether it's to train an AI model for the future, or whatever they might be, feeding it to marketers, whatever they might be doing. So yeah, I think exactly what you said. If you keep your AI model within your VPC, within your project, and you have control over everything you do, just like any other service. So are you logging customer data? Just doing things that you shouldn't be doing, right? So it's, in my opinion, AI in general isn't really new, right? It's been around for since before I was born. But what is new now is just the sheer scale of these models and their complexity. How many parameters they have are just on another level. So it is a really cool technology, but from a security perspective, it's nothing new. You should be doing the same thing you always should have been doing. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah. I guess, are you implementing, you don't have to name names, but like, are you implementing any, agentic AI projects for any customers around here?
For different workflows, I would say yes. For different things that, truthfully, like it's a good use of AI, whether it's, even just correlating different columns from one to another, or project workflows, or what else? I don't know. There's a lot of different things that you could use agents for, right? And usually you will if you're completing a specific task, especially in an agentic workflow. So yeah, I think it it's the same stuff as always, though. Like it's a new tool, right? Like if you go to Taco Bell and you're ordering something, it actually is a pretty specific use case that you're doing. But if you're doing, predicting things that you should not be predicting, or um, just trying to replace an entire system purely with AI, it's probably not going to work out very well for you. You have to really narrow down, what do I want this AI model to do, this agent to do, and then do it, right, and see if it actually works, and then test it thoroughly to make sure it works to your liking. Sometimes it's not going to, right? So you really just have to get used to it and understand that model, understand that agent, what is it doing, make it your best friend.
Thanks for keeping an eye on the questions, Kyle, because I'm not seeing them, again, because I'm on a different streaming service than I'm used to. I'm not.
Yeah, no, I got a different monitor, which is like the chat from LinkedIn. So every now and then I look at that. But I kind of want to hear from you, Paul, more than, running a live Q&A. But,
no, that's okay.
We love that. We love the viewers.
Answer as many questions as possible, for sure.
And any questions we don't get to, we'll respond in the audience afterwards.
I'm a bad host. I'm a very bad host.
Kyle is learning. He's great.
Yeah, you're doing great, Kyle. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So I'm not surprised by the use cases that you said are not great for AI. I am surprised that you put coding up there, because I guess basically I want you to answer all the questions that I have about vibe coding. Is vibe coding, first of all, do you consider that not a good term? Because that implies that maybe it's not a great level. But tell me, like, what's the approach for a super experienced software engineer? I think we all want to know this, in terms of how and when to start implementing AI into like your team's work.
Yeah, I know various companies where they're building their entire systems, right? Like they are large enough where they're able to invest millions of dollars into up-leveling their workflows. So, hey, I want it to do this, and then it gives you a pull request, and you review the pull request, and you say, nope, actually change this, and then it does it again. You say, okay, change this, and eventually it gets to a point where you're happy with the code. I think that's a great use case of using AI, right? Like you're not really giving AI free reign to do whatever it wants. You're iterating, and you're overseeing exactly what it's doing, and that's where, like, hey, good senior software engineers are able to see when code is good code. Vibe coding in general, I think it is what it is, right? Like it's quick, dirty, but I kind of think of it like, hey, you're building a mansion out of popsicle sticks, and for a startup, that might be what you need to do, right? But you need to understand that, hey, you built this mansion out of popsicle sticks, and now you have to replace everything, and you have to actually build it in a way that is extensible, maintainable, has monitoring, just good software engineering practices. So I think if you're a startup and, hey, I need to be able to show my VC folks this new whatever product, and I'm going to put on a show for them, right? And they're going to invest in me millions of dollars, and awesome, like good for you, great use of AI in my opinion, but you do need to understand there is a high likelihood that you're going to end up replacing all of it, in my opinion, or at least a very high percentage of it, or patching it. And it's the whole, if you shoot at the moon, it's very easy to correct your mistakes early on, but it's really hard to to correct when you're flying past the moon, right? Like if you totally miss the moon, it's too late at that point.
Do you think vibe coding was the cause of East 1 outage?
I actually did not. I did not look into what the cause was. I know it was down. I know it, broke the internet. Like truly broke the internet because
Right.
many different systems utilize AWS. Um, I have no idea. I haven't even looked into it.
Yeah,
It could have been any.
I didn't see the post-mortem or anything. I just heard that everybody's complaining.
I thought that the diagnostic gave something very specific, but again, I don't remember. That's in the world we live in. That was like 3 or 4
of course,
weeks
nobody's
ago,
gonna say it was vibe coded, right? Like,
Yeah.
so.
I won't say anything about Amazon specifically, but I think in general, many people might be surprised as to some of the possible situations that any company can get into, where an intern can take down a huge system that much of the internet relies on, right? And that has happened at different companies in the past. And you can look it up and see like, oh, an intern clicked this button and it took down this huge portion of our company. Yeah, I mean, it's the fact that an intern is able to do that,
it's given that access is wild.
Yeah, it's given that access. I'm a big fan of like if you are able to break it, like then that is your fault, right? Like it's not the person that broke its fault, it is the team's fault that hey, we should not have been able to break this in the first place. So yeah, do a post-mortem, make sure that you correct whatever went wrong and you fix it so that it is nearly impossible to do that again in the future. And that is something that these larger companies do, right? They put together a correction of errors, COE, or whatever you want to call it for whatever company. And then you say, hey, these are the things I'm going to put in place to make sure that this never happens again. And I think that's just the right way to go about it. But yeah, I don't know what happened there. I think I did read the postmortem now that I'm thinking about it, but who knows? It could be anything, right? Like it could just be bad software engineering. It could be like there could be an infinite number of reasons as to why your systems go down.
Yeah,
right.
I know I've seen cases where vibe coding definitely has led to hyper inflated, quick timelines, over promising, and then basically having to rebuild everything essentially from scratch because it was all BS. Obviously, that's not that's like the worst case scenario. But yeah, like with everything AI, I'd be if I'm not a software engineer. If I were, I think I'd go in with a lot of skepticism. I was at a panel last week where one of the panelists said that I don't know if you'd agree with this, Paul, or you, Kyle. I'm sure you have a take on this. Vibe coding can take your 0.1x engineer up to a 1x engineer. I don't know if that's true, but it's more likely to take the 1x to a 10x.
It could be both, right? I think as long as there's someone that knows what they're doing, there is a right way to make software, right? To write software, there's a right way, in my opinion, or at least an elegant way, a beautiful way to write software. And if you have a junior engineer generating code using AI, it's going to be AI generated code. So you need to have someone that knows what they're doing, that is able to give that person feedback and say, hey, these are the things that need to be fixed here. So maybe it does take that 0.1 person up to a 1 or that 1 up to a 10. But either way, somewhere along the way, you have to have good software, and vibe coding is likely not going to get you there. So I think, yes, if you're a good software engineer to begin with, you can generate code and do it that beautiful, elegant way, write it that way. But if it's not, it's just not, right? Sorry, go ahead, Kyle.
I mean, yes, I agree with you because I feel like if you're 0.01 of a mistake, now you're a whole one mistake, right? It's still a mistake, it's just more, I guess, faster, cheaper, better, but still a mistake. You're still building into the, some random thoughts of, you're just eating an apple. I'm like, oh, make an app that does XYZ. Now there's 5,500 lines of code. Who's gonna go review that, right? Like I know like probably 5-6 really, really good engineers. One of them is Paul. I don't think they're gonna sit through like 10,000 lines of code and like try to figure out what line by line, like what's going on over here. Does this like procedure call the other one properly? Is this memory optimized, CPU optimized? Does it run in parallel, right? Does it pass all the use cases and test cases that we have? How can I break it, right? Like a lot of things goes into that. So like, I don't know, when people claim that, 40% of code is now AI generated, like, sure, but is it like really useful code, or are we just, generating,
Yeah.
nonsense? So
Yeah, and even by saying, hey, X% of code is generated using AI, well, sure, it wrote the code, but I'm the one that directed it in this direction. And when I say, hey, this function should add two numbers together, it should return a number, right? And it's just let's say it's an adding function, adding method. You're able to tell AI, hey, this is what I want it to do. It generates the code for you so that I don't have to type it. That's maybe an oversimplified use case, but then you look at it and you say, is this good code? And if it's not, you redo it. And a lot of the times that isn't what ends up happening. It gets you about 80% of the way there. And that 20% is usually the hardest 20% to deal with. So you end up just kind of redoing it. But I do think, yeah, hey, if I want this little section of code, cool, have it write that for you. But if you want an entire system built out of AI, that's when I feel like, Kyle, you just described what we used to call, and I don't even know if I should say this since I'm one of them now, but we used to call it contractor code, where it's just some dirty code and it works. It does exactly what we agreed it should do, but it's spaghetti code. It's not written in a way that's maintainable, extensible, no monitoring. It falls down all the time. And that's actually, in my opinion, a great metaphor for what AI generated code is, right? It's just not elegant
I used
code
to
that
do,
oh, sorry, go
yeah,
ahead.
I used to do consulting myself, so I know when like vendors were like, oh yeah, we had a bunch of consultants followed by messed up conversation that they came and destroyed everything and they left, and
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
I
because they just
I
need to check the boxes, right? That's
yeah,
If
their
they're not
in their contract.
thinking long
Yep.
term. Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
we're close to time. Do you guys have like another 10 minutes to stick around? Because we've got a few more questions I want to, not from the
Of
audience,
course.
from us.
Yeah, of
What can we
course.
get to? So we're kind of jumping around here, which is the sign of a good conversation. Getting back to like when you go into companies, Paul,
Mhm.
again, they want some transformation or some project or some implementation, looking to a certain degree for things to be AI enabled. Because what the higher ups, whether it's the CEO or the board or whatever, wants everything to be AI enabled now, right? So
Yep.
if you say, look, no, we can do this, or we can do something smarter without AI, so you're kind of pushing back. Are they kind of pushing
Yes.
back then? But I have to do AI. Like,
Yeah. I I think it depends on what the situation is and whether or not it's a company that has a good, good culture of I accept that people will make mistakes and I'm not going to hold you super accountable to hey, we found something new and uh, we were wrong and move on, go on to the next step and just constantly doing that. I think if it's a good company, then they're usually okay with that. If it's maybe a little more, I don't know what the right word is, so I'm going to say toxic culture, where you're not allowed to fail, you're not allowed to not deliver on your quote unquote promises, right? Um, I think that's where it becomes much more difficult, especially if what I've seen is when there is a higher up or a VP or someone that was brought in specifically to do this, and they've made very, very big promises. And then I ask, how are you going to do this? And they say, and their response is AI. And it's like, well, that's not actually the solution. Like, how are you going to do this with AI? And there isn't really a good answer, right? They don't really know how they're going to do it. Those situations are just a little bit scarier for me, because that is their life, right? Like, they were hired specifically for this job. They made
right.
some really big promises, and then they have to stick to it. And at that point, I'm a very blunt person, right? I'm very direct, and I will just say, hey, this isn't going to work. And I think a lot of the people on this call that know what AI is and know, know what's going on behind the scenes, like are in agreement that this likely is not going to work. Um, but then at that point, there's the sunken cost fallacy, right? It's like,
Mhm.
well, we've already done all this, and we're just going to get it done, but then the results just aren't good. So then they may launch this product or this algorithm or whatever it might be using AI, and it just doesn't work. Customers don't want it because it doesn't work, but they're able to say that they did it using AI, and I think in my opinion, a lot of these companies are that's what they're chasing. They just want to be able to say, "Are we doing AI?" Whatever that means, so that we can tell our stockholders that yes, we are chasing AI just like everyone else. Stockholders don't know what AI is either, so so yeah, they need to check that box too. And as long as they're checking that box, everybody's
Hopefully,
happy.
as we like descend from the peak of the hype cycle, that will become less and less a reality. Or people
I
just
hope
watch our
so.
show and they realize you don't always need to include AI.
Yes.
It
Yeah.
is true. However, there's another part that I think is like kind of things get lost into translation in the middle management area. So you have your key performance indicators from a CXO, right?
Yep.
Whatever department they are in, and then that is two sentences. When it gets to that engineer, like senior engineer is actually implementing what was said on top, I think it turns into 500 different interpretation of that, right? There is a
Yeah.
like two sentences at the top, and it comes down to that engineer. There's like a list of 40 boxes that needs to be checked of like, oh, this feature is working, that feature is working, blah blah blah, and then
Yeah.
you could go wrong in so many different places there. It's not just because the investors said, oh, I dumped $500 million in this company. It better be, using AI for doing X, Y, Z, right? Like it kind of gets lost in the translation down the line
Yeah.
as well.
I mean,
So
that's Kyle, I actually love that you even said key performance indicators, right? Because that is what, in my opinion, these companies should be doing is they should make their KPIs public to everybody, right? At least internally. So, hey, if we want to make this algorithm more efficient, and right now it is 60%, whatever that means, let's just say it's 60%. We want that number to be higher. That is the goal, right? Tell that to your engineers as well. Tell it to the managers, tell it to everyone. What I agree with you. I think what ends up happening is they tell the managers this is what the KPI is. The manager then comes up with their own solution in their head and they say, okay, we are going to solve it this way. And then they tell the engineers, now we have these 10 things that should be done, when in reality, the goal, right? And that's a book that people should maybe read as well. It's called The Goal. But
The
yeah, I mean,
goal.
it really is. Yeah, it teaches, make it very clear what the goal is, um, and uh, and chase that instead of things kind of getting miscommunicated in between, and you kind of make up your own goals along the way, and it's like, well, why are we even doing this anymore? I totally forgot what the goal is because I've been chasing implementing AI in the system, when in reality I want to make this number a bigger number, right? Like I want to make it more efficient, I want to make it whatever.
yeah,
But instead I'm now just chasing getting this product out the door that nobody wants, and it has nothing to do with this goal. And I think that's just a big I don't
yeah,
know, something that most corporations should be doing is focusing on what is the goal that you are chasing and how can you push that goal forward.
exactly, exactly. I guess, sorry, Mary, I know you have another question,
It's
but
okay.
like
Go
I
ahead.
want to mention that Paul has a really nice book that he wrote about
Oh,
personal finances.
yeah.
I don't
Yes.
read books. I don't read books unless a very like influential character near me is telling me to read something. I don't read stuff often, but like I would highly recommend to get the Little Book of Big Money, it's called, I believe.
Yeah, My
um,
Little Book of Big
yeah,
Money.
yeah, if you
Awesome.
want to
Yeah.
have a if you want to retire early like Paul did, you should definitely read that book.
Well, he's still working, but retired or shift
Yes.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got
Yeah.
bored. I mean,
Yeah.
really, if you just sit there and stagnate, that's not a great life.
Yeah.
Maybe that's getting more into philosophy than
Right.
anything. But I mean, if you're an engineer, and I think that is, and you don't maybe aren't super interested in personal finance. But I think most people want to have just a good life where they don't have to worry about money. And
Mhm.
that's ultimately what the book's focused on, is just like, hey, these are maybe some of those ways to do that.
I love it.
In my
Yeah,
opinion, like it's kind of fire based, like financial independence,
yeah.
retire early. And it just gives, in my opinion, like very basic personal finance tips that I've learned most people don't know. So
Yeah.
it's kind of shocking to me actually how many people don't know some of this stuff.
Yeah. No, we'll happily drop the link in the comments, and that's a good almost final question. So we'll end on this. Whether it's like the book you wrote, the personal finance book,
Yeah.
or um, other. We know that you're like active in the community. You do a lot of mentorship. You're doing teaching. Um, what sort of why do you do that? Because the vibe
Yeah.
from a lot of people in the tech world these days is not necessarily that, like, to do good in the world, right?
Yeah.
So it's nice to see that and hear that, and sort of like, yeah, what motivates you to
Yeah.
give back and to be one of the good ones.
Yeah. I'm not in those people's brains, right? I don't know how they think, and everybody thinks very differently. But um, I guess I live, uh, I think everybody lives by certain truths in their life. And my number one truth is, and has been, at least for a very long time, that, hey, just be a good human, right? And in every moment, every single moment that you exist in, like really
Mm,
reflect on, am I being a good human right now? So somebody, drives past you, flips you off, whatever. It's like, what would a good human do in this situation? And they'll probably try to de-escalate, understand that person, be empathetic to that person. It's There's a good word. I think it's a made up word, but it's called sonder.
mm,
And what it means is that it's like the realization that every person has just as complex of a life as you do. And when you
mm,
start thinking about it like that, it's like, well, I want that person to do well just as much as I want me to do well, right? And truthfully, I think you get way more satisfaction. I think there's even studies on it that when you participate in someone else doing well, you get much more gratification than if you do well. So
mm.
um yeah, I just it's it's just very obvious to me at this point in life, like, hey, go mentor high school kids. And I have people that come to me years later, and they're an electrical engineer, and they'll say, I was never exposed to engineering until I joined the FRC team, and like, you are a huge part of that, and I learned I love engineering, like I would have had no idea up until that point. um and now they're incredible electrical or software engineers or whatever. So yeah, I think it's just obvious to me. Like, hey, that's
Mhm.
just a good thing for the world. Like, why would you not do that? Why would you not care about your fellow humans? Even if you maybe don't like that person or whatever, right? Like, you still want them to do well. Like, there is no net, it's a net benefit if everybody just does well, right? So I guess I try to uplift people. I try to make them see their own potential and realize
Mhm.
their own potential. And that's ultimately, that's my goal, right? Like, I just want people to do well.
Yeah, I
How
love that.
Whatever that means. Yeah.
It's also a good way of getting out of your own head, because I wouldn't say that I'm nearly as good of a person as you, but I know each time I've tried to help someone, it like makes you pull back and say, wait, like, look how much I have, and look at the starting
Yeah.
point I have, whether it's helping educate other people, whatever. And sort of, yeah, makes you grateful also
We
for
need more of you, Paul.
yeah. No, I
I
agree.
I don't know. I try in every moment. I think everybody should, like, hey, just, this is the only moment that matters, right? Right, this moment, and like, try to make decisions in this moment that if your goal is to do XYZ, like, make decisions in this moment that influence that goal. We don't control anything, Kyle. I think I've sent you videos on this, right? Where it's like, we influence everything around us, but we don't control anything. So put out into the world what you want to see, put out into the world. If you want to start a company, like, you have to start just walking towards it. And even if you have to
Mhm.
crawl, start crawling towards it. But really, just, this is the moment that matters, and the past doesn't matter anymore. It's done and over with. but like this moment matters. So just think
Yeah.
about what can I do in this moment to better myself, better the people around me, accomplish big goals, shoot high, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
all of
I
that.
couldn't, I usually I ask the guest for like a final word, but I'm going to leave that as the final word because ultimately this is a show about really workplace automations, which is the transformations happening and that we're trying to implement in our workplace through tech. But equally important is like the human beings, and not just like
Yeah,
human in the loop AI, but human to human and how we treat each other, which all
yeah,
sounds very cheesy, but is so important. And it's also really good business.
yeah, exactly.
So this was amazing. Thank you for your time, Paul. We will get you back on when we're more established.
I
This was
love it.
incredible, and good job on your second co-hosting experience, Kyle. You did great. And we'll see you both soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me.
Of
Thanks,
course.
Paul.
All right, thanks.